Hi everyone, it's your girl Robin Shockley with Focus 4 with Robin on the go. You never know where I'm going to be. I'm here in Traveler's Rest today in my home, and I have a very special guest who has decided to come and join me today. She has got a story for the Voice of Vision and Truth podcast, and you want to hear it. Welcome, Miss Angela. Can you tell us your full name?
My name is Angela Godfrey.
Okay, Angela Godfrey. Now, Angela, we met sometime last year. We were at a gathering at our friend Tony's house, and Mr. Vaughn.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
we hit it right off, didn't we?
Yes, ma'am, we did.
We did, and we had some things in common, which was really cool.
Yes.
We do, and it was pretty awesome. So I am so glad that we finally got this interview, because I remember last year you're like, I'll come on your show. I'll tell my story. So I'm excited that you are here today to share your story with us on the Voice of Vision and Truth podcast.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, okay.
I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do today, because I understand you have a nonprofit.
I do. I came to South Carolina probably about 6 years ago, transferred from North Carolina.
Okay.
I work for Walmart as a general manager's assistant.
Okay.
Through that, I actually met wonderful people.
Okay.
And it actually, the way I met people, it led to me meeting you.
Okay.
So I do have a nonprofit, and it's called A Modest Haven, and it's geared towards women that have been through domestic violence and assault.
Okay.
So,
Is that here locally in this area?
it's in Spartanburg, and I plan on trying to reach out. Really, I don't want to turn anyone away.
Mm-hmm.
Once I do get my facility
Mm-hmm.
and start being able to help people
Mm-hmm.
and bring them in. However, there will be some limitations to it.
Yes.
But when it comes to the women and children that's going through
Okay.
domestic violence and assault, I'm all for it.
Okay, well, why we're here today, because we wanted to speak on the reason how this nonprofit even came into existence. And it's part of your story. And I understand this is the first time that you've ever went public with your story.
Yes, ma'am. The first time just really sitting down with someone, actually talking about it, answering questions. Like, I made a post to Facebook, but it wasn't in detail.
Okay.
So with you, yes, you are the first.
Okay.
Who I sit down and talk
Well,
to.
it's an honor to have you share your story, because I remember the first time that I went public with my story. I was nervous and stuff, but you seem like you're very confident and secure, and you know, even though it's going to bring back some memories, I don't want it to affect in a negative way, but I want it to help bring awareness, and that's the whole point of us being on the show today. And you have agreed to talk about some things that are very deep
Absolutely.
in your past. So can you just start off with how was your childhood when you were growing up?
I had a great childhood. My mom was awesome. She made sure we had everything we wanted. Well, all of what we needed.
Okay.
Because I was spoiled. I kind of got everything I wanted. But we had an awesome childhood. However, in childhood, there are some things that happen. And I wasn't always the best kid. If you listen to my mom tell some of the stories.
None of us were, honey. None of us were the best kid. I was the firstborn, so I know I wasn't the best kid.
Well, I'm the baby. My mom kid. So
you were the spoiled one.
I was the spoiled one. I would admit to that.
Yes.
But she did everything she needed to do.
Okay.
Like I say, nothing we ever wanted. However, something did happen to me that caused me to really become what you call a bad kid.
A rebel,
getting in trouble.
so to speak.
Yes. So it's something I know my family don't like to talk about. I'm to a point in my life, once I told my mom, because it took me 13 years to tell my mom.
Wow, and how old were you?
I was 13 when my uncle broke in our house and he raped me.
So is your uncle, is this on your mom's, dad's side, or?
He is on my mom's side. And my mom always told me that I can talk to her about anything, and she always made me feel safe.
Because parents say that. Parents let you know, hey, if there's anything, but as a child, especially being a teenager at 13 years old,
Right.
you have a mixed emotions of life anyway. You're going through puberty and all these changes,
Yes.
and then something traumatic happens to you where it didn't just happen during broad daylight. It happened in the middle of the night.
It was the middle of the night. He broke in our home through my bedroom window.
Okay.
It was probably maybe 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, I didn't tell my mom. I didn't, say anything because I felt like it was my fault.
Well, that's a very interesting statement. You felt like it was your fault when you were asleep in your bed at 13 years old. Why did you have that pressure on you to think that?
Honestly, that's something I cannot answer because I do not know. But I knew had I told my mom, I just felt like some bad things would happen and I would lose my mom. Wow. And I didn't want to lose my mom.
So you loved your mom so much, you thought it would be protecting your relationship or the family and not tell your mom because it was your mother's brother.
Absolutely. Yep.
Oh my gosh.
And I started acting out. I started fighting all the time. And it was just so much, like, you wouldn't believe, like, all the trouble that I started getting into from me being 13.
Did you tell anybody, any kids or anything?
I didn't tell anyone until I was 16, 17, and it was my very first boyfriend. I told him and his dad what happened to me, but I did ask them to, I asked them to promise me that they wouldn't say anything about it. Because, I hadn't carried it for so long. At that point, I hadn't already carried it for about 3 or 4 years. And they did. Wow. And to this day, as far as I know, he still haven't said anything.
Well, see, that's the thing. And even though it sounds like it's good, they're respecting you for not telling you. But look at all the trauma that you had to deal with for all these years. You had to carry this load on you because more years went on until you even broke, broke the news out to your family or to your mom to let her know what actually happened.
Absolutely.
So what gave you that courage finally to speak up?
It was so many times that I wanted to tell her. And so, like, when I would come, let's say when I, started getting older, I had my first kid, and started getting my own place. When I would come around to family events, I was just not comfortable around him at all. I never wanted to be around him. No one paid attention because it was something that I just kept to myself, and because I was this child that got in trouble all the time, just like, that's just her being dramatic, So finally, and it's crazy because I couldn't even tell her face to face. Wow. I didn't tell her face to face. I actually told her over the phone, and it broke her heart when I told her. And she asked me why I never told her, and I said I was scared. Wow. And I felt like I would lose her.
We've said a lot of things here, and there are a couple of things I want to kind of reiterate and talk about. When you were 16 years old, you had a boyfriend, and you told his dad. His dad's an adult,
right?
So, how do you feel about that today? Him holding that in and not going to your mother to saying, "Hey, I've got this news, and I don't know how you want to handle it or whatever," but do you feel that trust should be betrayed in that way, or is that something that could be protected?
Now, as I am today, maybe yes, he maybe should have went and told my mom, but
as a teenager,
I'm happy that he didn't because I just knew it was gonna be so much. Yeah. But to think back on it now, and the fact that I tried to protect my own kids and tried to keep them away from it. Yeah. Well, that it didn't happen like I wanted to because it happened in my own home.
We're gonna get to that. So. This is a very powerful story because this is things that happen in the home. It's not just off the street, because it happens everywhere. It happens off the street, happens with friends, happens businesses. But this situation happened when she was a teenager in her home asleep. Now, whatever was going on with her uncle at that time, whether he was drinking, whether he was on drugs, whatever, even if he was in his right mind, she was an innocent child that was violated. And she was raped. She wasn't molested where it continued on continuous. It happened one time. Right. So he may not even remember. He may not even be thinking about it, you know, he could have, like I said, he could have been messed up or whatever. But the point is, she was violated, and she had to carry this on for years in secret. And 3 years went by, and she finally told somebody. And when she told somebody, she begged them not to tell, but she still had to carry that burden. So when you had your boyfriend, of course, you in love and all that, and you think, oh, I can trust telling him this and stuff, but did he even try to comfort you, encourage you, or anything? Or
he did. He felt like I should tell. But, you know, I was hard-headed. You know, I didn't want to tell it. I just didn't want to worry my mom.
Well, what you were doing too is, I believe this happens a lot, and this is what I want to ask you, is that I believe when trauma happens, these kids tend to regress, and they close up and they hold it in and don't say what really happened, but they rebel. So what are some of the signs to look for? Like, we have facilitators, teachers, community leaders that are watching this, you know, around the world. And so what are some of the signs for us to be looking for if we're around children that may act certain ways and stuff like that?
So, I mean, if you have a child that's, you know, your child is good, you know, and all of a sudden they just start, that grades are failing, they're fighting all the time, they're always angry about something. You know you haven't done anything to them, but when you say something to them, they're just mad for no reason. Those are the signs. Something has happened. It may not be rape, it may not be molestation, but it's something that has happened to that child that's causing them to be that way.
Wow. So you've ended up telling your mother what happened to you, and you said that was like a relief that you had, and it broke your mother's heart, of course. How did that affect your relationship with your mother?
Oh, we still have a great relationship. You know, it didn't break us. It only made us stronger.
And see, the thing is, it could have done that when you were younger.
It could have.
Yes.
But, you know, again, I was just scared. What it all boils down to, I was just basically scared to tell my mom because I didn't know what was going to happen.
Was your mother was compassionate and understanding?
Oh, yes.
So that's the thing, what I'm trying to get to is that parents, moms, dads, aunties, grandparents, or whatever, need to show that compassion. They need to make it a safe place, safe haven for these children to come to them. So if something is going on, because we're always saying, oh, you can come to me, you can come to me. You can say you can come to me, but the action of letting that, you know, throughout the children's years, this is how I feel. And I wasn't the best parent myself, but I feel that parents should give that security in that child, constantly be saying, now if there's anything that you may have struggled with at school and this and that, make sure you talk to me. Or if you can't talk to me, let's let you talk to your grandmother. Or let's let you, you know, try to encourage that and say it on repeat. That's what I feel.
Absolutely.
And I look back now, which thank God my children had, you know, people that they could talk to outside of their parents, but, you know, with their grandparents and their aunts and stuff. But that's a key thing too, is to give that child the assurance to know that they are safe to share with you and be open. Don't just tell them, but show them. So,
and listen to them. I know as a parent in some areas I failed because even when my kids taught me, there was something I didn't listen to my kids. And my kids were telling me, you know, the signs was there. It was there. But I was a workaholic because I was trying to make sure that my kids didn't want or need for anything. You know, so I worked 2 and 3 jobs. Even with a husband, I worked 2 or 3 jobs, which I shouldn't have been.
Wow. Speaking of, let's put this on pause just a few minutes, and we're going to take a break because there's more to this story. There's so much more to this story. And also we want to talk about the awareness, not just noticing the signs, but like she said, listening. But there's so much more that we're going to learn, and we'll be right back. This is Robin Shockley with the Voice of Vision and Truth podcast. You come on here, you tell your story, you tell your truth, and you share your vision. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about more. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Do you have a story to bring positive impact of change to the next generation or even this generation? Contact your girl Robin Shockley on all social media platforms to tell your story on the Voice of Vision and Truth podcast. Welcome back, everyone, to the Voice of Vision and Truth podcast with Robin Shockley from Focus Forward with Robin. And I have Miss Angela here with me. She's been on here talking about your story. Now, this is a lot to take in. We have talked about your childhood and the things and the trauma that you have been through and how you dealt with it. And now you finally had the courage to tell your mom that it happened, and it made your relationship stronger, which is awesome. But we talked about the signs to look for and how to be aware and to listen. You really talked about, we need to listen to our children. How do you feel about getting children into a mentorship program or youth into a mentorship program? Because sometimes, these kids, they don't feel comfortable talking to their moms or their dads about things.
Right. I think if you can find someone that your child will talk to, like, mentors, school, they have the counselors, get them a therapist. There are things that they will share with others that they cannot share with you. Okay. Even though we try to give them that safe place, they're still scared.
Yeah.
And like I was scared. I just felt like if I told my mom, I don't know what would have happened, and I may have lost my mom.
Yeah.
Because we love our kids.
That's a lot of pressure. That is a lot of pressure on the kids.
And it's a lot for you to carry around. So that's what makes you become angry and bitter and all of that. So
okay, so with this, you had some childhood trauma in your life, but it didn't stop in your youth.
No, it didn't.
Tell us something else happened in your life as an adult.
I became, with what happened to me, I ended up being in domesticated relationships where the violence was there. It was real. My oldest two kids.
Do you think it had a lot to do with keeping the secrets and not wanting to share and scared about not being received, and it just became a cycle?
It did. Once you start holding on to one secret, you're gonna hold on to another. Because even with my oldest two kids' dad, when I got into fights with him, I hid it from my mom. I hid it from my family. I didn't come out for days because I was trying to hide the bruises. I ended up getting out of that, and it was just one relationship after the next that was bad. And then I ended up being with my ex-husband, and him and I was together for 16 years, and it was a domestic violence relationship the whole time.
So how many? So wow,
three relationships.
3 relationships, and it continued to be a cycle.
Yes.
So, and then your last relationship with your husband, the one that you was married to.
Yes.
It was. And how long were you with him?
We was together for 16 years. We was married 9 of those years.
So I'm gonna ask you the question that everybody asked me: why did you stay in the marriage if the abuse was going on?
I asked myself that. Why did I stay? Sometimes it's the fear of being alone. You don't want to be by yourself. You just feel like this person is going to change. I love this person. They're going to change for me. They're not going to do it no more. They promise you, I'm not going to hit you no more. We're going to go through this. We're going to get therapy. It's all the promises. And then you thinking that person is going to change to the point where I thank God that I'm here today.
Wow. What are some of the things that, if you don't mind sharing, that happened?
Oh, it was, throughout my whole marriage, he cheated. He cheated, had women stay right down the road, brought women to my house. We was fighting. It was just so much, like the bruises. I had, and I can't say that I didn't have a support system, that always told me, you need to get out of this. You're too good for this. So you don't deserve this. And they stayed on me about it, but some of the fights I hid.
Wow.
Because I didn't want anybody to know that I was going through that. And so...
Because you kept the secret as a child.
I kept it as a child, so it followed me into my adulthood.
That's why it's so important to let the children know that they can talk. These secrets that are kept in the home are only going to cause more secrets. Right. Like she said, it's going to keep repeating itself, and they'll go down to generation to generation to generation. Somebody's got to break the silence. Somebody's got to cut the cord.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm very passionate about that because I got free, And when I got free, I said, no more. I'm
Right.
cutting the cord. I'm not holding back anymore. And I'm finding out little by little, I'm revealing more strength in me than I thought I ever had because I got that courage.
Yes, ma'am.
So speaking of the courage, Miss Angela, what caused you, or what situation maybe happened that caused you to say, okay, enough is enough, I'm leaving?
You know, it was just a constant, the fight started getting worse. But the last straw is one morning I was leaving home to go to work. We hadn't already separated. He was living in his own place. You know, he hadn't moved out of home. I was still there. But he come over one morning for what? I have no idea. I was walking to my car. You know, he said something to me and I was like, I'm going to work. When I went to get in the car, he ran up to my car. I locked the door. I drove off, high speed chase. He started chasing me. He was in his girlfriend's car. He started chasing me. Well, we ended up getting to a stop sign. And as I turned, he shot around me and cut me off. He got out of this car. He tried to open my door. He couldn't open. This man jumped on top of my car. He punched my windshield and busted with his fist. Now, you imagine if he would have hit me.
Wow.
I felt like I wouldn't be here now. So that was it. That was it.
The last straw.
We actually filed for a divorce and we ended up getting our divorce. So I left North Carolina and I came here to South Carolina.
Wow.
And I was divorced before I even left North Carolina.
For you. So you started a fresh new start, a fresh whole new start.
Absolutely.
Wow. Awesome.
Yes, I did.
And you're smiling today.
Yes.
So obviously you are free and healed.
I am.
Because through that's how you started the idea for your nonprofit.
Absolutely. Now I would say I'm not completely healed.
Okay.
I am still healing.
Okay.
But I am at a place where I feel good about myself.
Yes.
And so I feel like I can get out there and I can help other women. You know, I meet these young girls sometimes and I can see it in them that they went through what I went through. And so I talk to them and I tend to gravitate towards them, you know, and I try to let them know, hey, if you ever need somebody to talk to, you are more than welcome to talk to me. And, you know, I have had a few. You know, I give them my number, they call, they talk to me. And I try to be a mentor to them just so, you know, you have someone. I know you might not want to talk to your mom, but I try to convince them to go ahead and tell your mom when you're ready, but just don't wait too long.
Yeah, I remember I was walking in the middle school and I used to be a substitute teacher and I overheard two teenagers talking about what had happened the night before. And one of them was telling the other one that how she was attacked. And how you know she was assaulted. I don't know if it was a rape, but I knew she was assaulted. And I overheard it, and I didn't hear the whole thing. So what I did was I went to, because I was a substitute teacher, but I didn't want to carry that on me. So I didn't go to the girls because I didn't want to draw attention. But I said to one of her teachers, her other teachers, because she knows the teacher. So I just said, I overheard this conversation. Can you please get the counselor or you talk to her and just ask her more in detail? You know, so that's the thing. If you overhear something, if you don't feel comfortable sharing it yourself, go to somebody that you know that you feel confident in. Our administrators, our teachers, we should be comfortable with them. Go to them and say, hey, I overheard this conversation. This is something that might need to be looked into, you know? So that's very important because that's where mentorship comes in because even if you don't feel comfortable, get them connected to somebody that can help.
Absolutely. And I would like to say that, you know, a lot of times we think it only happens to women and girls. No,
we don't.
Men are abused just as well as young boys. So if you know anything about a man or young boys, you know, speak about that too.
Yes.
Their pride not going to let them say anything, but it needs to be shared as well. Everybody goes through it, not just women and females.
I totally agree.
So, and another thing we need to stop doing is stop telling our kids what goes on in this house, stay in this house. No. No. It needs to be shared. Somebody needs to know what's going on. Yes. So we have got to break that. We got to stop telling these kids that because that's not true.
Because when you say what goes on in the home stays in the home and you leave it at that, then they think they can't talk about anything.
Absolutely.
You know, understand, you know, you get in trouble for, you know, sneaking out of the house or you get in trouble for this and that. That's understood because you don't want that to be, you know, that's the family's business. But if there's anything that could possibly insinuate that there's any form of abuse or violence or sexual abuse, that needs to be talked about. That needs to be told. Doesn't need to be covered up. We are here today with Miss Angela talking about her voice and her vision. Mm-hmm. And so you're telling your truth.
Yes, ma'am.
With your vision, with your, the name of your nonprofit is called again?
A Modest Haven.
A Modest Haven. Mm-hmm. So because it's a nonprofit, if people want to get in touch with you to have you speak or talk about awareness, and the signs, how would they be able to contact you?
I do have a Facebook page of A Modest Haven. Also, I can give my number. I can give it to Robin. You can reach out to her. I can actually give it to you. It's 336-290-2876. You're more than welcome to call me. I don't mind sharing. It's so much that I can share. But I'll be more than happy to share it. A Modest Haven is my baby. And if you see my logo, on my logo is called Bruised But Not Broken.
And tell us what that means.
So, through everything I went through, I was bruised, but I was never broken to the point where I couldn't come back from it.
Yeah.
If you're broken, you're done. I feel like you're done. You can come back from it, but if you're bruised, you come back stronger. Yeah. And I was just bruised, but I was never broken.
I love it. I
was never broken.
Angela, I thank you for being on this show to tell your story in depth and to also bring some awareness, to bring some acknowledgement to the things that we need to be aware of and we need to look for in the signs of the youth and even women. Absolutely. Because women tend, and the men in the relationship, there's men that do abuse. That get abused. It is. With women being verbally abusive and cutting and all that, and even being physical. It's sad because it's not just discriminating against it happening to men. Just in her case, it happened that way. Right. But it's very important that we do acknowledge the signs. We do understand that domestic violence isn't going to go away if it's not talked about. Absolutely. We have got to break the silence. We've got to share our voice. We've got to tell the truth, okay? Yes. And we've got to be able to take our pain and make purpose with it. Take our trauma and make triumph. That's what she's done with her nonprofit. So thank you again for being on this show today. I always like to encourage those that follow my page and follow my YouTube channel to know that you have a purpose through your pain. You have a triumph through your trauma. And if you would like to come on the show to share your story with your voice and your vision of truth, reach out to me on all social media platforms or go to my website, www.robinshockley.com. I'd love to hear what you have to say. What do I always say on behalf of Focus Forward Robin? On the go, you never know where I'm going to be. If you think a thing, you will believe a thing. If you believe it, you will achieve it, just like my sisters doing here today. Y'all be blessed.
Get focused, get noticed, move forward, you know it, Robin. Get focused, get noticed, move forward, you know it, Robin. Get focused, get noticed, move forward, you can see. Watch where she take 'em, full of inspiration, get your daily motivation. Get focused, get noticed, move forward, you know it, Robin. Get focused, get noticed, move forward, you know it, Robin. Get focused, get noticed, move forward, you can see. Watch where she take 'em, full of inspiration, get your daily motivation. With Robin, just get noticed, move forward, with Robin.
Do you have a story to bring positive impact of change to the next generation or even this generation? Contact your girl Robin Shockley on all social media platforms to tell your story on the Voice of Vision and Truth podcast.